Hello, hello. It has been a very, very long time since I have done a live. So I'm really excited, and I do have to say, a touch nervous on how this is going to go. I'm using a new program here. I'm trying to stream it. So I'm trying to stream it to both YouTube and over to Facebook. Hopefully, I've got the, the directions correct. So when you come on, I would love to see your names pop up and come in and say hello. I'm very aware that the time zone here might not be great for some of the viewers over in the UK and maybe Australia, some of the other countries. So sending all of you my love, whether you're watching here live or on the replay. Like I said, I was feeling a little bit nervous, and I had a wonderful meeting with one of my clients last week. And they had been telling me that they've been feeling for the last little while that they might be be called to do some YouTube videos. And they were saying how, what's really holding them back is that they're feeling like there could be imposter syndrome there. And I was saying to them that, I think we all feel that when we're first starting out. And he then went on to give me some really awesome tips, because I went on to tell him, well, I'm a little nervous because I'm going to be doing this week. And he had said, well, what some people do is they have a photograph that they put above their camera of their person or someone who's familiar to them, so they feel like they're not doing this kind of alone. So I totally took that piece of advice. So if you see my eyes wandering up to the corner, then I have a picture of me and my person right there next to the camera. So the next 3 days, what is in store for you? Well, I thought that it would be really nice. I've had the opportunity to meet so many of you through doing readings or your beautiful comments and likes. Some of your names are really familiar to me. And, like I say, I've got to know some of your stories. I felt like it would be a really good opportunity for you to get to know your reader. We have meet meet the teacher at parents' evening, and that can be valuable to know who's teaching your child. So I thought it'd be really interesting for me to share a little bit about my life story. Okay, so the next 3 days, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to be talking about quite a bit of my background, but also um, how I manifested my dream love by using my intuition, how I manifested my dream home by using my intuition, and how I built a six-figure business by using my intuition. Okay. So I'm just waiting for a few more minutes, but that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. Actually, while we are waiting, I had made you something. I don't know if all of you have had the opportunity to download this, but I have created this for you. It's a little book. It's like a journal. Okay, and it will be kind of following what we're talking about over the next 3 days, about using our intuition, assumption, and mindset. Okay, so if you don't have a workbook and you would like one, then just drop the word workbook underneath. It sounds so formal when I say workbook, doesn't it? A playbook, maybe we should call it. It's really fun. I think it will help you to with maybe some of your goals in your life. And I wanted to make that for you. All right. So I think we're ready to start. So let's start at the beginning. Hello, I'm Avalon Kisby. So I am the face behind your daily TikToks and the more intermittent YouTube videos. I'm really delighted to be able to do this tonight, and delighted to have each of you come and visit me here. It's an honor. It's an honor that you would take some time out of your day to come and watch this video. So many of you have supported me daily through likes and your gorgeous comments that you leave, and those who entrust me with their inner feelings, sharing their heart with me as they come to me for readings. There's been times that people have come to me for readings and they've told me that I am the only person in the whole wide world that they have ever shared their information with, their true feelings. I find that incredibly, excuse me, incredibly humbling. And I do so appreciate that trust that you have in me when I come in and do those readings for you. There really has been so many times that I've wanted to share my story with you, but also I didn't want to overstep. When we're in a session, then that time is yours, your valuable time. But I've heard your stories. I've heard your stories, and so many of them hold similarities to some of my own, and I've wanted to share. I wanted to share about how did I get from where, the issue that you're sharing with me, how I got from that to where I am now. So many of you have commented that you love my readings, and I so appreciate your lovely comments. I do. You've said that my readings are like storybooks. They're like storybooks and they're like fairy tales. It's really interesting because I have noticed that you can tell a lot about a reader by listening to the way that they channel and their perception of cards. From there, you can often tell where they are in their life path. Okay, and that's for a reason. Spirit has sent us as channels to work with the collective. So if my story was so significantly different to yours, then I probably wouldn't be the tarot reader that you were aligned with. So chances are we have similar paths, and the stories that I read through my cards are something that, connects us together. So in saying that, my life is like a fairy story. My life is like many of the readings that I have described to you. Now, it hasn't always been that way. And you'll get to hear my story over the next few days, but it truly is a Cinderella story, a rags to riches, and one where there have been villains and now a prince. So, like I said, over the next 3 days, I'm going to be sharing from certain topics. So today I felt like I would start with, what do we love to talk about the most within our readings? They're love readings, right? So I want to share with you my very, very, very true story. And when you hear it, you are going to think it is an absolute fairy story, because it is. It's something straight out of a Nicholas Sparks book or a Hallmark movie, quite honestly, but it is my story. So it is also a story about intuition and how intuition has been key. It has been the compass that has brought me my most success in all aspects of my life. Now, I know that the collective that I'm talking to is incredibly intuitive, incredibly so. All right. So a lot of this is how I'll give you the story, and then I'm going to give you the background to it and how I've had to learn to trust my intuition, because I do know that that's something that many of you have asked about, is how do I trust my intuition? Okay. So to give you background, I grew up in a really cute little town in the south coast east of England. And I lived in a sweet little home with my 3 brothers and later on my little sister. Okay, so we all love this home very, very much. I think many people do love their childhood homes, but to me, the energy of it was incredible and very unique. I had been raised in a very religious household, and it was very much expected of me that when I hit the legal age of marriage, then I would be married. And I can remember many, many times thinking how much I would miss the home. Yes, I would miss my family, but it was something to do with the home that I would miss so very much. I did my duty and I was married as soon as it was legally allowed. And I lived quite far. My family, my new family, they lived hundreds of miles away. And so I was only able to visit my darling home twice after being married and before my mother sold the house. So over the years, I have thought about that home. I have literally dreamt about that home. And it's a conversation that I would talk about to my siblings whenever we would meet. We're all scattered all over the world, but whenever we would get together, we would talk about that home and the memories that we had there. April of last year, my intuition said that I was going to be invited on a trip, and that when I was given that invitation, I was to say yes. Now, I do listen to my intuition. Actually always listen to my intuition. But I remember thinking on the other side of my brain, it was like, darn it. This is just when I'd started to set up my TikTok. And I was trying to, build a business at that point in time. So the timing was inconvenient, if you want to put it that way. However, I had always learned to trust myself. And so when 2 days later, my oldest sister, who I hadn't been raised with, she had been given up for adoption, when she messaged me and said that our aunt, who lived in the town that I had grown up in, had invited her and I to spend the entire August with her, I said yes. And before I knew it, I had booked my tickets to go back. This was a town, my hometown, where I had not been for 29 years. When I arrived, of course, I spent some time with my family, took my bags upstairs, but within 2 hours of arriving, I was taking a walk to go see my old family home. I was drawn like a magnet. I actually couldn't keep away. I would look over the fence. It was a corner house, and it had a long garden in the back. So I could look over the wall and I could see the beautiful garden that they had created, and I could see the extensions that they had added and the home improvements that they'd done over this 30 years. And I could see that it had been loved. I really longed to peek inside. And almost daily I would walk by that home. A week before my vacation was coming to an end, I still hadn't gained the courage to knock on the door. I thought that might be a little intrusive. But my intuition said, this is your last opportunity. I hadn't been there for 29 years and I had no intention of going back. But this voice, it said, this is your last chance. And it said, if you're not going to knock on the door, then you need to write a note and put it through the letterbox. I thought, well, that's a good option. So I did. I wrote a little note and I put in there, if you want to know about a family who lived here before you, I grew up in this home. And here's my email address if you would like to meet. So a week before I was to go home. 2 days later, I woke up to a lovely message from the owner of the house saying, do you know a Jill Pope? Well, yes. I did know Jill Pope. Jill Pope was my mother. And the owner of the house had purchased this house from my mother. And he had lived there with his family all of those years. He invited me for tea. And of course, I said yes. Now, originally, my sister, who had not grown up in that home, was going to be coming with me. But the night before I was to go, she said, I don't think I should go. I feel strongly that I oughtn't to. Now, under normal circumstances, I would have said, oh, please come with me. But my intuition, my soul, said, don't say a word. My intuition and my soul wanted me to go alone. I was so excited as I walked to my old home that day. And knocking on the door, a beautiful man opened the door, and his very first words to me were, welcome home. I'm sure you can guess where the story, what happened in this story. There was a connection that we had like no other. He had been divorced for many years and had lived there with his children. We spent that Sunday evening, we had tea, and I was only meant to be gone a half an hour to an hour is what I told my family, and it ended up being hours that I spent. He'd asked me if I had ever thought about returning, and I said, no, this is the first time I've come back in 29 years. I have no plans to come back. We said that before I left, I should take a photo. We should take a photo on the doorstep of us two together so that I could show my family who lived there now. We got into such deep conversations that that picture was never taken. I went home to my aunt's house. I could not sleep that night. I couldn't sleep. I thought about the stories that we had shared and the similarities. And I sent him a message the next day to thank him for allowing me to come over to the house. And I did say we did forget to take the picture. And he wrote back and said, why don't you come for dinner tonight and we'll take that picture? And so I went back. He asked me again that evening, do you think you'll ever come back? My answer was slightly different this time. It was, maybe I could come back. That night, or that evening, I gave him a hug goodbye, and I thought that that was probably the last time that I would see him. He had invited me for a tea the next day, which would have been the evening before my flight the next day, and I thought that I would be too busy. I had packing to do, I had family that I needed to say goodbye to, and I actually had a whole list of tarot readings that I was meant to do that day. I got through them really quickly. I packed my bags in the morning, and early that evening I messaged him and I said, look, I've done all of this. Would you like to have a cup of tea? And invited myself around. He asked me for a third time, do you think you'll ever come back? My answer was different this time. Would you like me to come back? So, I have been back. I went back and I spent New Year's in my old home with Stephen. And it was the most beautiful thing that I've ever experienced. And I'm actually flying to go back here at the end of this week to spend about 2 months over there. So I know many of you will be thinking, you're so lucky. Yes, I am so lucky. I am so lucky that I listened to my intuition. I'm so lucky that I went on that holiday, that I listened and I booked, even though it was an inconvenient time. I am so lucky that I listened and put a note through the door. When I think about how many times, how close this almost came to not happening, well, to me, it's almost inconceivable. My life has changed significantly. I had always loved that home. But as soon as I met Stephen, the home became insignificant. It became the tool of how we had met. My soul knew that Stephen was in that house and he had truly guided me home. So, can you see how listening to your intuition can be the compass? Tomorrow I will tell the story of how I got my dream home from being homeless and how I followed my intuition in that. To give you a background story, so that you don't think I've lived this life of privilege, because I haven't. I haven't. The things that I have created in my life, I have deliberately created. As a child, I had prophetic dreams. I could walk into a room and I could feel other people's emotions or illnesses in their body as if it was in my own body. I didn't have a filter. I was constantly talking to my spirit guides and to my guardian angels. I was a pure channel, and there was no veil between me and the spirit realm. We lived hundreds of miles away from my grandmother and didn't have a phone. And there were times that our family was in dire need of finances, and I could send her a telepathic message, and within a week she would have sent us money, because she knew. I believed that all of those gifts weren't special. I had no idea that they were special. I thought everybody had that. Like I say, I was brought up in a highly religious household. And by my late teens, I had been sent to marry. And for the next 2 decades, my life was a roller coaster. I had this battle inside of me of trying to please others, yet in doing so, it was at my cost, the cost of my peace and the cost of my happiness. And it was at this stage that I found villains, and to some, they thought that I was the villain because I could not abide to what they wanted me to do. During that time, I felt like I had been fully dunked and immersed in this school called Earth, where the test is to have many of those intuitive gifts removed or lessened. It was like having the umbilical cord cut and experiencing the harshness of the world alone. And the test is trying to stumble your way back to self, try to find out who you are. I think of those days of my life as the dark ages. In those years, I did experience homelessness with my 2 children. I experienced poverty and not knowing how I was going to provide the basics. And actually, they were the least of my worries. There was worse. And in order to survive, I had to turn off that empathy. I had to turn off those abilities. And in those years, I really went through just surviving. For those who have experienced, and I know many of you have, you've told me when we're doing readings. For those that have experienced long periods of fear or abuse, we experience something called soul shock or fragmentation. So just as a person's home is meant to be where they feel safe and secure, your physical body is where your soul is meant to feel safe and secure. And if it can't have that, there is a fragmentation. It goes into soul shock. And that's what I had experienced. My soul could not fully integrate with my physical body because of the state of fear that it was in. I suppose in some ways it's likened to PTSD. I needed to heal, and that took me years. But in those years, I took dedicated action. My intuition started to come back, and intuitively, I would get little messages. You need to meditate. How do I meditate? This is how you meditate. And I would be guided through my intuition, through my other guides. I would go on walks daily, and I would create a bond with my guides and with my intuition, and I had to learn to try it again. I had to learn self-trust, because in living the life that others had wanted me to do, I had essentially betrayed myself and had caused myself great unhappiness in doing so. And so I needed to gain that trust back in myself again, that I could make good choices. Mindset became huge for me. Before I even knew about the law of assumption or the law of attraction, my intuition and my inner guidance were telling me that that was how I was going to make the biggest jumps and improvements in my life. They would come from changing my internal thought pattern. Not finding the tools that I needed, I actually created a journal and created an entire business on it that I ran with my best friend for many years. It was very successful until we went our separate ways, built our own businesses after that. And this is in the years before affirmations and mindset were a hot topic. Okay, so I found a lot of joy and peace in design and art, and creating these items for myself and sharing them with others, actually very much like that little journal that I've created for you. That would be like a sample piece of something that I would have created. Journals, oracle cards, and in the beginning, even my own rudimentary tarot deck. I'll have to dig that out and see if I can show that to you. It's kind of cute. So I feel now that my life has come full circle. The gifts that I had as a child have now fully returned. And with that, a deeper empathy, a deeper wisdom from all of the life experiences. This all took me decades to learn. Decades. I've been entrusted by many of you, like I say, with your deepest feelings, things that you maybe never have shared with another. I've heard you express to me of your deep inner knowings about a soul connection or a counterpart, who you're meant to be with. Some of you have shared about your abusive relationships, and sometimes we've had to navigate how to shift out of those. With many of us, we have had huge soul journeys that we have looked at as we read tarot together. Do you want to hear what my top questions are for people when they come in for a tarot reading? They are, what are their feelings towards me? If they care for me, why don't they tell me? Is this just my imagination? This intuition? Is it my imagination? Some of you tell me that you feel that you're destined for something big, yet you can't quite put your finger on it and you can't quite ground it. The other thing I hear all of the time is, my manifestations are taking forever. The people that you know that you're meant to be with, that your soul and your intuition are telling you about, it's taking forever. And for many of us, we talk about this over and over and over and over again. And, I want to come in and explain certain things, but I just have to do the reading because that's the amount of time that I'm allotted. And that's one of my main reasons I'm coming on here tonight, to in doing these readings for the last number of years, I've seen this repeat pattern. And it's like, how can I help? How can I help my collective to shift from there to where I am? And you can say I'm lucky. Yeah, but like I've said, I'm lucky because I've listened to my intuition, not just my intuition, my mindset, and my assumption. Do you recognize any of this within yourself? People that you know that you're meant to be in a soul connection and your other person is doing nothing. There are never ending complications. They're staying with a third party. It's been taking years, months and years for you guys to get together. You're saying, why am I not being chosen? They never tell me how they feel. I know how they feel, but they haven't actually expressed it, but I can feel it within me. Is that you? If that's you, then I have something for you. Like I say, this is something that took me decades to learn. I'm a slow learner. I'm a very slow learner. But I have cracked the code. I have cracked the code for love, for home, for business, and even my appearance. All of it. Do you want a partner that adores, loves, and cherishes you? One where there is no other? Someone who is going to be open with their feelings towards you? And you are able to have that deep soul connection that you are desiring? Do you want to live the higher version of yourself where your life becomes easy? Where money flows to you simply by you following your passion? In many of my readings, I say to you, all of those things that are that I just mentioned, that is your birthright. That's your birthright. It should be a given. And I mean that with all of my heart. And you get to choose. You do. You get to choose. And there's a different life that you could be living. It has taken me so long to share, but I've always known I was going to be a teacher and a mentor. And I thought that it might be something to do with this. However, under no circumstances would I ever have the audacity to teach or to mentor if I hadn't accomplished something myself. I haven't just achieved it, I've actually thrashed it. From homelessness to a beautiful home. Rags to riches. From having poverty, being in poverty, using the food banks, to now having a 6-figure business and a secondary business that I actually I don't even have time to run anymore. I'm having to sell it. A villains to a prince. Not only is the prince just the most beautiful person that I've ever met, but he actually happens to live in the home that I grew up in. How is that real? It is real. It's completely real, but how? Look at me. I am completely relatable. I am completely ordinary. The things that I have are not out of your reach. Once I had grasped the concept of this, it only took months for things to start shifting for me and to changing. Yes, I have decades of experience of how I got from there to there, but my biggest leaps came within months once I recognized what I had to do. And I'm going to show you how to do it. I've actually put together a 3-month program for you where we're going to look at your intuition, your assumption, and your mindset. The exact methods that I have used to create my fairy tale life. This program is called I Am Avalon, and it's a 3-month program. I am, two of the most powerful words that you can ever speak. But when broken down in my program, I've used that because I, intuitive, A, assumption, M, mindset. Who's this going to be for? This is for you if you know you are destined to be with a soul counterpart. But there's this spiral of complication, lack of communication, third party, or you recognize that you have a purpose and you just can't seem to ground it. You can feel greatness in your bones, and yet it is taking ages to manifest, forever. Within this, we need to look at your limiting beliefs. We need to shift the perceptions, and we need to create unshakable mindsets. One of my greatest qualities is when I know I know. And it's unshakable. I've always been that way. When I know I know. And I hold that for all of you. When you come and tell me these things, that this is my intuition, that this is my person, I believe you. And I hold that space for that to happen for you. There's a quote that says it takes 90 days to change your life. You can't change an ingrained mindset overnight, but you can change it with time and daily practice and consistency. So in this 3-month program, what are you going to receive? You're going to have access to me, 14 live sessions, weekly sessions, okay, for the 3 months. We're also going to have a group community. Having a group of like-minded people around you is going to speed up your manifestations and your mindset and keep you strong. I've also created many tools for you. Beautiful journals. I've created lists of affirmations. And once I get to know who's in my class, I'm going to tailor make it to suit those in my class and build it out as we go. Now, where is this going to take place? So we've been, who's this for? What are you going to receive? Where are we going to do this? Well, that's another piece of really exciting news. I've built an online school. So I know I've been a little lacking in social media, especially on this YouTube site, for a little while, because I've built this school myself. There's been no web designer, no nothing. It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. But more than that, when I do something, I take it really seriously. So not only is it an online school, but I wanted it to be an accredited online school. So I've gone through the accreditation process, and I can tell you that I had to prove my credibility and I had to be accountable. And I've done all of those things, and I have received accreditation. So this is an accredited school. The really, really exciting part of this, and I've come to you guys first. After here, I'm moving on to TikTok, where I have 50,000 followers. I've come onto these platforms where my diehards are, and I'm sharing it with you first. But the investment for this is only 1111, our angel numbers. Speaking of new beginnings, this is an introductory offer, introductory founders offer, and it will never be priced at this again. 3 months, 3 months for 1111. I really am. I'm so excited to be able to work with you in this capacity, to have my arm around your shoulder and for us to work together. On top of that, I have a special offer for the first 5 people to enroll. The first 5 people to enroll and pay in full will be receiving a one-on-one Zoom call with me, where we're going to lay down the groundwork of what it is that you want to accomplish within this 3 months. Now, let me see if I can do something here. Let me see. Where can you find this to enroll? Let me share you www.avalonacademy.com. Okay. Let me see. There. That's where you can find this course. And I would say that if this is something that you are thinking about doing, then I would run, not walk. Because I have people who have been asking me for this course for months and months and months. And this is the first time I've opened it up. If you have questions about it, absolutely feel free to either drop a comment below or to reach out to me via email, and I would love to answer that for you. I'm really, really excited to be able to put this program on for you. Like I say, I have had people that have come to me for months asking me, how do I do this? How do I do that? And because I'm so booked with readings, I do not have the opportunity to sit and teach one-on-one or to send messages back and forth. As much as I would love to, this is a way for me to be able to share my knowledge with you within that time frame. I really am. This is my calling because I care for this collective. It's my calling and my duty. So I will be back tomorrow, same time tomorrow, and I will share with you my story of homelessness and where I am now. If you like, I can even show you pictures. Would that have a visual aid of where I used to live and where I live now? That might be quite interesting for you. Never ever to brag, never. Just to prove and to share where I've come from, how far I've come. Okay. Thank you so, so, so much for being here with me tonight. I send each of you much love, many blessings, and I look forward to us connecting tomorrow.